Hello and welcome to our State of Affairs portion of the program, where we're very pleased to be joined by Mr. Adrian Shephard, a gentleman from the UK. Adrian, welcome to the Collegium.
Thank you very much, Donald.
Adrian, you're an artist in Berlin.
I hesitate over the word artist. I know I'm in Berlin, but the word artist is very interesting for me.
A gentleman in Berlin.
Okay, I can deal with that just about.
What does a gentleman experience? What have you experienced as a gentleman in Berlin to date?
This is a very big question.
Just the parts about your dance.
As I will probably say through this interview many, many times, I'm a very simple person.
Okay.
So moment by moment, I think. And Berlin is a very open place for me. If you want to experiment or do something, the city is very open to it, whereas other cities are not so, more closed off for me, I found personally. So.
Well, in terms of your creativity, your artistry, your dance, how has Berlin responded to your offering in that direction?
How can I ask Berlin how it's responded? Again, to maybe think very small.
Okay.
In the very small performances that I've done in very unique spaces that have unique history,
okay,
and a unique quality. There's been interesting responses.
Okay.
The word interesting is maybe not so interesting. But yeah, how the question with this type of dance, Butoh, maybe Butoh doesn't exist, or the word never existed anyway, my teacher might say that. It's unique in a sense of working from the heart. Kazuo Ono, one of the co-founders of Butoh, said how not thinking only soul, whatever the soul is, or the spirit, or the drive of what it is to be human. So yeah, how the audiences receive something. If it's possible to move the audience in some kind of way, where people feel something, then I would say I could use the word success, maybe. And what is moving an audience? Can it be something where someone's horrified by what they saw, and I will never ever go see that artist ever again? Or is it something where someone is driven to emotion, perhaps? Then yeah, so I could use that, very tentatively use that word, successful. But also, for me, I am my own worst critic. Oh, okay. And for me, every dance is, I try to treat it as if it's the last dance. This is the last dance I will ever do. Right. And how to put 100% or 99% power and intensity into a performance. So these are all questions, how, and I think Butoh questions every aspect of performance, how to come onto stage, how to approach the audience, how to finish a piece.
Right.
So yeah, it's research, but as I say, I make it sound intellectual. It's I think I spend most of my time, maybe 99%, using these 99% words again in this little fish tank in my life, but how to recognize that I live in this entire form, this strange form, you know.
Well, how do you communicate these issues or these points that you're making now? How do you communicate them to your students?
Good question.
Okay.
This is a very interesting question, of course. And for me, each workshop starts with a moment of quietness, how to still this mind, this crazy sort of brain factory, you know. And so I work with a meditation, which is just observing the breath for a few minutes before, so that to try and approach some kind of stillness at least. So beginning, how to begin. And again, this exercise can be used through a dance piece as well. When I I'm in a dance piece and I feel, my mind is going off somewhere else. Just bring back to the natural breath in this moment, natural breath. So a beginning, this is a beginning. And then there follows an intense period of working with yoga, with and other forms of body training. So maybe if it's a 5-hour session or 3-hour session, then a large percentage is devoted to working with softening the body and trying to bring myself into the present moment, how to bring myself into into this kind of form, this container. So yeah, intensive body work, and then after that I work with some limits, because of course this kind of dance, one could how to work on boundaries. So yeah, and my teacher Masaki Iwana, who was my principal teacher, I worked with a few other, or I was taught by a few other Buto masters, but for me Masaki Iwana was the most powerful sort of teacher, disciplinarian, I wish to say. So he forced me to sort of see my own, to go beyond my own boundaries. So intensive body work first, and then some poetic movement. And by poetry, my teacher and I adopt this kind of method of, for example, blooming, an exercise, one word, blooming. We work from the floor to standing. But, for example, if you have 10 minutes to work from floor to standing, this is one exercise, very poetic and may seem very simple, but how the body, for me, I'm a tall person, when I get to about this point, then there's a lot of power that's needed. So how to keep this intensity sort of going.
And music?
Music, again, Buto questions every aspect of performance. Music itself is, there is sound everywhere. How, even if I'm in some kind of anechoic chamber with kind of egg boxes everywhere, I'll start hearing the sound of my own heart
But
pumping.
then you have to make a choice. How do you do that?
So, how to treat music during this kind of dance. One can go with music, or one can go against music, and maybe there's a third element that's created out of this. So, personally, for me, when I'm working with musicians during a dance piece, again, I prefer very simplicity. So, for example, I was working with Matthias Müller recently, the how can I describe him? Trombonist, when I did the performance before on your program, Donald. And he works with exploring the entire instrument, so working with the breath, and he produced very unusual sounds, almost synthesizer sort of sounds, synthetic sort of sounds, but just using his body and this instrument. But there's no reason, I don't discount anything. It's just the working with music, yes, how to go again. It's, for me personally, it's interesting to, the music's there to provide a vibration for the audience and for this strange object that I've been born into with this life force.
Right.
Yeah, so the music can go against. I tend to go against the sound.
Well, what about darkness?
This is a good question, because Ankoko Buto, as Tatsumi Hijikata called it, he said it was the dance of utter darkness. And I want to maybe make a difference between Tatsumi Hijikata's Buto and Kazuo Ono's Buto, because one could say that Tatsumi Hijikata was very dark in his exploration of the body, and Kazuo Ono was more the bright sort of spirit sort of side. Hijikata wanted to explore the veins, the blood. I hesitate to say. I'm not speaking for him, but for me, from my own perspective. But yeah, how to explore the inner side of what it is to be alive, and go beyond the boundaries.
Physiologically or psychologically, or both?
Both, at the same time. How to do this? Kazuo Ono would say that we have, in our lives, we have 50% lightness and 50% darkness. And by darkness, perhaps, he says, the unknown. Every moment, perhaps, is unknown, and how to get into these delicate, each moment in life, this moment between us now, an intensity of moment, an intimate moment, and this kind of sense of working with this intensity, you know, explores this darkness. I don't know who I was before I was born. I don't know where I'm going when I die, or where this spirit or this life force goes. But perhaps every moment is birth and death. And how can I treat it like that? So the death is unknown, the birth is unknown, then every moment surely is unknown, and how to explore this and express it.
Then what are your plans for the future, as best as you can estimate at this particular point?
It's a very challenging question. My plans for the future, one thing for me is how to explore intuition, this inner voice, and I rightly or wrongly, this is the way I seem to lead my life. So that doesn't mean that it's not possible to create opportunities, but I like breathing. So the air comes, so an opportunity comes, and I consider it very carefully. So for me, working with someone else, a musician or even another dancer, for example, or I consider the person, the opportunity, but also the space in which we will perform, because every space is very unique. A few days ago, I was working in doing some heavy lifting work in Berlin's Olympiastadion, for example. There was a very famous comedian whose name I won't mention now, but he can fill the place with 80,000 people, you know, and plus all the television cameras and all this, you know, everything. Who knows how many people are watching this over Germany? For me, the uniqueness and the intimacy between the performer and the audience. How can one address this? You know, so with your question, it's the being in a space is considering the space, the uniqueness of the space, maybe the history, and also the feel of the space, but also the person I'm working with and the opportunities that come up. So again, I'm kind of drifting away from your question of where am I going in the future? Well, again, doing workshops with people and performances, but the performances I do are not all the time. It has to be a very special sort of time, and how to put, as I say, how to go beyond one's own limits, you know, not to kill myself as such, although I have been very close to it in some of the performances, but to challenge myself, and also to remember that the audience is there, very special, you know, how to keep giving.
Adrian, I'm sure things are going to continue to work out well for you. Thank you for joining us here on the Collegium.
Thank you very much, Donald.
Okay, so stay with us, and remember, you are participating in what else but the Collegium.